Today, we're going to unpack one of the most influential documents in modern history, the United States Constitution. But we're not just going to look at what it says. We're going to dig into the really crucial question of why it was designed the way it was.
To really get the Constitution, you've got to start with this question. Because before this famous blueprint for a nation existed, there was another attempt at a rule book. And frankly, it was a total disaster.
All right, so let's rewind and look at that first draft of American government. It's super important because it shows us exactly what the framers of the Constitution were so desperate to fix.
So, right after declaring independence, the new states came up with something called the Articles of Confederation. You can basically think of it as America's version 1.0. It established a firm league of friendship between the states, but the central government it created was, well, let's just say it was weak on purpose.
And oh boy, were their weaknesses obvious. The central government couldn't tax. Can you imagine? It meant it couldn't pay its debts. There was no president to lead or enforce laws, and with states basically acting like their own little countries, the nation was anything but united. So the Constitution was engineered to be a direct solution for every single one of these fatal flaws.
The real breaking point, though, came with events like Shays' Rebellion. You had debt-ridden farmers in Massachusetts rising up, and the national government was literally powerless to stop it. That event sent shockwaves through the nation's leaders and proved that a stronger framework was needed, and fast.
So the complete failure of the Articles leads to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. And the document they came up with? It started with three little words that changed, well, everything.
We the people. Seriously, those three words were a radical departure from everything that came before. Power no longer flowed down from a king or even from the individual states. The new government's authority would come directly from the citizens themselves.
This opening, the preamble, is basically the government's mission statement. And each goal in here is a direct response to the chaos they'd just lived through, to form a more perfect union instead of a loose league of states, to establish justice where there was none, and to ensure domestic tranquility after events like Shays' Rebellion.
And all of this boils down to one core principle: popular sovereignty. It's this foundational idea that the people rule, and the government only exists with the consent of the governed.
But okay, how do you create a government that's powerful enough to work, but not so powerful that it becomes a tyranny? The framers' solution was a brilliant new blueprint for power.
They separated power into three distinct jobs. You have one branch to write the laws, another to carry them out, and a third to interpret them. This is that famous separation of powers, and it was all designed to make sure no single group could control everything.
First up is the legislative branch, the lawmakers, which the Constitution calls Congress.
Now, Congress itself is split in two. The House of Representatives gives states a voice based on their population size, while the Senate gives every single state, big or small, 2 equal votes. And together, they hold massive powers. We're talking controlling the nation's budget, passing all federal laws, and even declaring war. Next, we've got the branch that's responsible for executing those laws, the executive branch, led by the president.
The president is the head of state and also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He or she has the power to veto laws passed by Congress, appoint judges and cabinet members, and act as the nation's chief diplomat.
And finally, you've got the branch that acts as the ultimate referee of the entire legal system.
The judicial branch, headed by the Supreme Court, interprets the laws, but its most important power is something called judicial review. That's the ability to declare a law unconstitutional. And to protect them from political pressure, justices are appointed for life.
So you have three powerful branches. But what stops one from overpowering the others? Well, the framers had a really clever answer for that too.
This is the system of checks and balances, where each branch has ways to limit the power of the others. For example, the president can veto a law from Congress, but Congress can override that veto. The Supreme Court can strike down a law, but the president is the one who appoints the justices, and they have to be approved by Congress. It's a brilliant, interlocking system designed to force compromise and prevent any one branch from getting too powerful.
But the framers knew they couldn't predict the future. So they built in a way for the Constitution to actually change with the times.
This is why the Constitution is often called a living document. It wasn't meant to be static or frozen in time. Through the amendment process, it could adapt to challenges and moral awakenings the founders never could have imagined.
And you can see this evolution all through American history. Just 4 years after the Constitution was signed,
The Bill of Rights was added to protect individual freedoms. Later amendments abolished slavery, gave women the right to vote, and expanded voting rights to younger citizens. Each change shows how the document has been used to expand the blessings of liberty to more and more people over time.
So the Constitution is way more than just a historical text. It's an active blueprint for a continuous and, yeah, often messy debate about power, rights, and the meaning of self-government. Which leaves us with a final question for you. Where do you see that balance of power at work in the world around you today?